Wonderful. So hello and welcome to Solar Alberta's 2024 Solar Show, our 10th annual. This session is called How to Better Serve Solar Clients. Please note that we have enabled closed captioning for this presentation. You can turn the captioning on in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. My name is Heather McKenzie and I'm the Executive Director at Solar Alberta. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that I'm hosting you today from Amiskwaciwaskahigan, also known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homelands of the Métis Nation. Treaty 6 territory is the traditional gathering place and home of many Indigenous peoples, including the Papaches, Nahewaqa Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux, nations whose ancestors have cared for and nurtured these lands since time immemorial. We're delighted to have so many people register for this week and for this event in particular. To start, we'd like to thank Enbridge for sponsoring the 2024 Solar Show as a whole, and Horizon Energy for sponsoring this exciting session today. We're very happy and grateful to have them both as sponsors. Today, we're going to be hearing from Preet Kang and Scott Robson. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer period in which you can all participate. We'll be using Zoom Q&A for questions rather than the chat box. So please enter your questions in the Q&A section. Also, please click on the little thumbs up symbol to upvote questions that you like. The entire session will wrap up in an hour and a half. We will be recording this session and making it available on our YouTube channel following the show. I'd like to encourage you all to check out our online trade show during the week. We have listed on this slide and in the chat all the wonderful organizations who are participating. To view their exhibitor booths, which include a listing of key solar-related services, contact info, and video introductions, please click on the link in the chat. Before we move forward, we're going to do a quick poll to get a sense of who we have joining us today. So please take a minute to answer the question that will be popping up on your screen. There we are. And while some are still doing the poll, I just want to encourage you to also take a minute, pop your name, land acknowledgement, and any contact info you're sharing in the chat now and throughout the event so that others can look you up on LinkedIn or email you and you can get connected. All righty, looks like we have quite a few professionals in the room today and also a lot of solar curious folks. That's great. Nice balance. So this should be an engaging session for all. All right. Now, just want to share a little bit about who we are. Solar Alberta is in our 33rd year of operation. We're a nonprofit society that is dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. We do so by advocating, educating, and serving as an industry and community hub for solar energy. Our membership is made up of over 783 individuals and 162 businesses. We also have approximately 21,000 followers on social media and through our newsletter. We provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory on our website. You can see a screenshot of the directory here on this slide and a link to it in the chat. In addition to our website services, we run a number of educational programs as well as in-person and online networking events. Please note that recordings of all our previously recorded events can also be found on our YouTube channel. This spring, we're once again running a number of online courses for solar industry professionals or those transitioning into the sector. Our courses are online Tuesday and Thursday evenings on 3 to 5 nights over 2 to 3 weeks. First up is Economics of Grid-Tied Solar PV. You can register for all of our courses at the link provided in the chat. We're also offering a new Buy 3, Get Codes free bundle. This bundle includes the 4 technical courses on our roster. The link to purchase the bundle is also available in the chat. Recordings of these courses are available for sale alongside our paid workshops in the solar training videos section of our website. With respect to our advocacy work, we have a number of different campaigns running, which include template letters that you can use to contact decision makers. Please send letters requesting the Canada Greener Homes Grant be refinanced, requesting an end to the provincial moratorium on renewable power plants, and requesting a number of supports for solar and energy efficiency upgrades to homes and businesses in Alberta. We also have free Rise Up for Renewables lawn signs available for pickup in 11 municipalities around Alberta. So please click on the link in the chat to access all our templates and make a sign order today. And now that you know a little about us, just want to take this opportunity to encourage you to join us as a member. Membership is only $35 for individuals, and this week only, you can purchase an individual or student membership with a 20% discount. Today is the last day for this sale. The link to become a member is also being placed in the chat. On April 24th, we'll be hosting our annual general meeting. Just want to invite you all to sign up as members, attend, and elect your new board. There are several vacancies to fill on the board this year. If you are interested in applying, you're welcome to do so through our website until February 29th. With your help, we are recognizing longtime dedicated contributors to solar in Alberta by gifting them a free lifetime Solar Alberta membership. Please consider becoming a member and nominating the solar champion in your life for this award. We'll be accepting nominations until April 3rd, and the award recipient will be announced at our AGM. And we're very pleased to announce the first ever Solar Alberta Diversity Scholarship. This scholarship is intended for equity deserving individuals. Through the scholarship, we are seeking to promote inclusivity, amplify historically marginalized voices, and encourage diverse participation in the solar and solar-related sector. We will award $2,000 to one equity deserving individual registered in an Alberta training program that aligns with our mission. We'll be accepting applications until April 30th. Eligibility details and the scholarship application are available by clicking on the link in the chat. And we're very thankful to Enbridge for sponsoring this scholarship. Finally, we ask that you consider participating in our 50/50 raffle, which is now over $2,400. The 50/50 ticket sales will close on Friday. Oh, that's today, and I'm going to be doing the draw live at 5 o'clock during our Solar and Friends mentoring and networking event. Additionally, please consider donating through the crowdfunding link in the chat. The Government of Alberta is matching all donations made through this link. And now, I'm delighted to get this session underway by introducing our sponsor for the day, Jordan from Horizon Energy. Jordan will tell us a little about Horizon, and then she will introduce our speakers for the session. Welcome, Jordan. I'm going to turn the mic and the camera over to you. So you're welcome to camera on now.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jordan. I'm with Horizon Energy, as mentioned. Horizon Energy is a residential-focused solar company that aims to make the transition to solar power straightforward. Our goal is to help people transition to green energy, own their power, and control their energy bills. Our program involves sales reps approaching homeowners, answering questions, sharing innovative solar solutions, assessing roof capabilities, supplying preliminary designs, production estimates, and pricing. We aim to be transparent, honest, and upfront with our potential clients and provide homeowners with a smart energy solution that is high quality and affordable. We ensure our staff understands all processes, such as the Canada Greener Homes program and the various stages of a solar project, to allow us to escort all of our clients through their entire project from start to finish. Our mission is to help people transition to green energy and protect their energy bills from soaring, no pressure, educated-oriented, customer experience focused. Now I'd like to introduce our next speakers, Preet and Scott. Preet is truly passionate about renewable energy and climate action. Her formal education in chemical engineering has led to the understanding that the way energy is produced has a lasting effect on our world. She believes satisfying the increasing energy demand while maintaining sustainability and quality is a huge and complex issue in our communities. As a youth, she is curious about this challenge, eager to delve into and support communities that promote climate policy and clean technology. Preet is currently the energy transition campaigner at the Alberta Environmental Network, working to advocate with the just transition in Alberta as the province moves to a low carbon economy. Scott is a partner at the law firm Borden Launder Jarvis LLP. His practice focuses on advising clients, on important corporate and security law matters, including cross-border and domestic mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, shareholder activism, and corporate governance. He has extensive experience acting for both public and private companies, operating in a broad range of industries, including the solar and energy transition, technology and technology, industrials, healthcare, consumer and retail, transport and automotive, financial and lodging, and real estate. Prior to becoming a lawyer, Scott owned a business and worked at the MS Society of Canada, where he led a team responsible for numerous fundraising initiatives. I'll now pass the mic over to Preet and Scott to begin their presentation.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This session focuses on protecting your reputation and ensuring customer satisfaction by making sure that you are in compliance with the Solar Alberta Business Code of Conduct. We'll be highlighting various areas of the Code of Conduct that clients care a lot about, as well as recent code updates by Solar Alberta's Board of Directors, which were approved and published at the end of November 2023. It is important to note that this presentation only provides an overview and will not go into the full details of each section. All business members, staff, and contractors must become familiar with and comply with all elements of the newly updated document. Please note that while this presentation and the Code of Conduct are good starting points, we recommend that you seek out independent legal advice. After outlining different sections of the code, we'll be providing a brief overview of the complaint resolution and disciplinary process. And then finally, we're happy to open up the floor for your questions and discussion.
So first, we'd like to briefly talk about the purpose of the Alberta Solar Business Code of Conduct. The code is really intended to protect and serve consumers by ensuring a fair, safe, and informed marketplace. It establishes strong mechanisms for consumer protection and promotes transparency within Alberta's solar industry. So why is this important? Well, it ensures we protect the reputation of the solar sector as a whole, since what one member does often reflects on the entire sector and industry. The code is also one of the reasons why members of the public will often seek to work with our members, since complying with the Alberta Solar Business Code of Conduct is a required condition of business membership with Solar Alberta. This ensures Solar Alberta remains a trusted source of information for the public, and it also helps our members maintain and uphold ethical practices in the rapidly changing marketplace. So the Code of Conduct contains numerous provisions. These include best practices for advertising and marketing, system calculations, contracts, conduct during interactions with consumers, Solar Alberta staff and board members, and more. Generally, the code covers 9 key areas: the obligation to comply with the law, obligation to ensure compliance, unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts or practices, also known as UDAP, advertising, system production calculations, sales and marketing interactions, fair and honest treatment of consumers by Solar Alberta member representatives, fair and honest treatment of Solar Alberta staff, board, and volunteers, and contracts. In addition, the Board of Directors of Solar Alberta also recently added some guiding principles and expectations around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Next slide.
You can find more detail about and links to full text on Solar Alberta's website for the Alberta Solar Business Code of Conduct, the complaint resolution and disciplinary process, which provides an opportunity for consumers, members of the public, and Solar Alberta members to respond to and work through consumer complaints to the mutual satisfaction of both the complainant and the Solar Alberta member, and the complaint form, which provides a means for complaints to be registered. Our website also outlines the Ethics Committee's terms of reference to explain the structure of the Ethics Committee, which is a committee of the board and is referenced in the Solar Alberta Complaint Resolution and Disciplinary Process.
So next, a little disclaimer. Where would we be if a lawyer wasn't giving you a disclaimer? So before we get into specifics around the code, it's important to know that Solar Alberta is a self-governing body. So this means it can only enforce its code with respect to its members. Solar Alberta is not an administrative or regulatory body that enforces criminal or consumer protection laws or other similar laws and regulations. All Solar Alberta members are expected to act with integrity and abide by the ethical and legal standards in Alberta and Canada associated with the renewable energy profession. Currently, there are minimal regulations for the solar sector in Alberta. And so often the public seeks referrals through our organization because we're one of the only bodies providing safeguards and accountability in the sector. Again, it's really all about trust. Some of these safeguards include complaint resolution and disciplinary processes, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. The process for this sets forth procedures to be followed by Solar Alberta in the event that there is a disciplinary process undertaken. And this can be in connection with a non-renewal, suspension, or expulsion of a member, or any other matter where Solar Alberta exercises its disciplinary authority. It's important to note that code non-compliance could result in a disciplinary action against a Solar Alberta member. If that disciplinary action is a decision of the ethics committee to revoke membership, the member will no longer appear in the Solar Alberta directory and will lose the various other benefits that are associated with membership, including the ability to participate in certain solar incentive programs.
Maybe it seems like it should be obvious that your company should comply with both the law and code of conduct, but you'd be surprised by how difficult some solar providers have found this during the recent boom period. Alberta has experienced incredible growth in solar installations in the past 2.5 years. Approximately 9,500 homes and businesses in Alberta have installed new solar arrays, up from 6,700 in May of 2021 to more than 16,000 today. This industry growth has resulted in a tremendous increase in both the number of solar providers and the number of employees working at solar companies. It has also meant that many companies are increasingly contracting out pieces of their business because they are growing so quickly and finding it difficult to keep up. As solar providers do scale up to meet the increased demand for services, it is important to make sure that everyone in your organization, as well as anyone who may be acting on your organization's behalf, including contractors, service providers, and outside agents, are all on the same page and understand their obligations. When you are onboarding new staff or contractors, please ensure that they are familiar with all laws and the Solar Alberta Business Code of Conduct. This is particularly important for staff working in marketing and communications, sales, and contracts, as these are the areas we are seeing the most code violations lately. First off, if you are a solar PV provider or installer, it is your job to be aware of all federal, provincial, and municipal laws and how they apply to you. This includes, but is not limited to, laws regarding truth in advertising, consumer protection, contract law, and other relevant regulations within their professional practices, including electrical, construction, safety, and labor regulations. Complying with the law is a huge responsibility for solar providers because there are so many laws to be aware of. It has come to our attention that not all solar providers have updated their contracts to align with the latest legislation. It takes a big commitment because ignorance of the law is no excuse, and you can be held liable for infractions. Section 7 of the updated Solar Business Code of Conduct contains a list of some of the various regulations and laws that you should be aware of and comply with.
So next we'll talk about unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts or practices. So it's very important for solar providers to be on the lookout for and act immediately to correct any UDAP within their business. The code requires that each Solar Alberta member regularly examine and consider the possibility of UDAP violations in all respects of their business that touch on consumers or their interests, including with respect to marketing, sales, origination, contract terms, contract options, disclosure requirements, installation, servicing, and loss mitigation. Actions members should be taking include ensuring staff are qualified and competent, giving clients adequate information about services and risks, and also being transparent in all interactions with any consumers.
A code violation that we recently investigated at Solar Alberta was in relation to advertising. The Code of Conduct contains specifications about advertising. It states that no advertising claim by any Solar Alberta member should be deceptive or misleading, whether by affirmative statement, implication, or omission, including claims about products or services about pricing, quality, or performance. Further, all claims must be supported by factual, verifiable sources. Solar Alberta members should avoid referring to a solar system as free in oral or written marketing or sales. Discussion unless the consumer will not pay anything for the solar system or the energy it generates. Any other use of free in sales or marketing must present to the customer precisely what is being offered with and without any current or future cost in a clear and obvious manner, including reference to possible property tax, without offering tax advice or insurance cost implications. Prices quoted must be accurate and complete, covering all products or services offered or requested, with prices for optional or additional products or services clearly identified as such, with payment terms clearly stated and with the period of availability of the quoted prices specified. Comparisons of current pricing, contract terms, products or services must not be misleading and must include all relevant facts to understand fully the pricing terms, products, or services being compared. If advertised prices include initial pricing reductions, such as teaser rates or future increases, all material terms of such initial reductions or future increases shall be disclosed when prices are marketed or otherwise communicated to consumers. If advertised prices do not include ongoing operation and maintenance costs, Solar Alberta members shall disclose this to customers. If advertised prices do include ongoing operation and maintenance costs, Solar Alberta members shall disclose what costs or services are included. If the advertising includes financing, the advertising must contain the required disclosures in accordance with the cost of credit disclosure regulation.
Since advertising is an area where Solar Alberta is seeing increasing complaints, we thought it would be very helpful to look at some best practices in advertising and compare them to what we'll call some poor practices. So in the next two slides, we've mocked up some examples for you. This image here is an in-house adaptation of an Instagram post from an Alberta-based company. It's the first page of a 6-page post designed to educate the public about the Canada Greener Homes Loan Program. The subsequent pages then walk the customer through the steps of applying for the loan. So this ad, we would say, demonstrates good practices in advertising. So why is that the case? In this case here, because in addition to educating the customer, what does it do? It complies with the Solar Alberta Business Code of Conduct. So in particular, you can see it includes the name of the grant and the details about the loan term. And it also contains nothing hidden or misleading.
By way of contrast, this image is an in-house adaptation of an ad that violates the Solar Alberta Business Code of Conduct in several ways. First, the ad implies that the system is available for no cost without further details. Although it does state no cost at install, there are no other details about how much the user will have to pay after install. It does not include the name of the grant or program or any details about the loan term. It is generally misleading or deceptive. It also implies that users can also get a free backup battery for no cost at install. Elsewhere in this advertising campaign, they also suggested that customers will never have to pay for electricity again, which we all know is not true. If the customer's PV system is sized correctly according to the microgeneration rules in Alberta, there may be months when the customer doesn't have to pay, but they will still have to cover some fixed transmission and distribution costs, as well as fixed administration fees, and will likely have to pay, import and pay for at least some electricity in the winter months. Moreover, if the customer system is smaller than what is necessary to cover their electricity needs, they will likely have to pay something every month. In addition, if you are a solar provider from outside of Alberta who is installing PV systems in this province, it is important to know that the economics are different in each province and you will need to revise your advertising to meet the requirements in Alberta. For example, some regions of Canada have time of use rates, that is, different rates at night or even during times of energy shortages. These rates do not exist in Alberta, which changes the economics of grid-tied solar PV. Therefore, when marketing PV systems in Alberta, providers have to be very careful and factual to the Alberta situation, which may also vary depending on which energy retailer is involved. For example, some retailers in Alberta offer solar-specific energy plans while others do not. Here again, we'd like to remind you that Solar Alberta members should be familiar with all advertising laws, rules, regulations, and guidance in force and effect in the jurisdictions in which they operate, including the Alberta Fair Trading Act and regulations.
So let's now discuss some best practices in sales and marketing in accordance with the code. So first of all, Solar Alberta members must comply with and ensure that all of their employees, agents, and contractors comply with any federal, provincial, and municipal laws regarding restrictions on contacting consumers. Solar Alberta members must also respect the wishes of consumers who are not customers and do not want to be contacted. To do this, they must maintain accurate and current do not contact lists such as list with respect to such consumers, and requiring their contractors, service providers, and agents to maintain such lists as well. The code of conduct contains specific details about what is required for maintaining do not contact lists. Furthermore, it might be surprising we need to harp on this, but it's a reminder to everyone to treat all customers and consumers with respect. One way to demonstrate respect when interacting with a first point of contact at the door is, for instance, if a woman answers the door, when you speak with her, she's your first point of contact. You wouldn't, for instance, want to ask to speak with her husband. I know this sounds sort of like a very obvious comment to make, but surprisingly enough, this is actually fact-based feedback and experience we had at Solar Alberta.
We'd also like to bring your attention to the door-to-door sales section of the Code of Conduct in particular, which was recently updated. Although door-to-door solar installation sales are not currently prohibited by law in Alberta, the board recently reviewed this matter and determined that Solar Alberta members should avoid high-pressure sale techniques, especially in door-to-door situations. Further, Solar Alberta members must not enter into contracts or take payments or deposits upon first meeting a client at the door. A follow-up meeting and/or phone or electronic correspondence must be undertaken for contractual or financial transactions to occur after a minimum of 24 hours.
All right, let's talk about contracts, something lawyers get very excited about here. So this is another area we often hear complaints about at Solar Alberta. The code does contain information about what's required in contracts. We're not going to get into all the details here, but we will highlight a few aspects. We mentioned it earlier, but I do think it bears repeating here. It's important to ensure that your contracts are up to date and meet all legal requirements. This includes, for instance, compliance with the Consumer Protection Act. It's also important to make sure your contract terms and verbal representations that are made to the customer do not conflict with each other. So you don't want to be at the door telling the customer one thing and then have something completely different in your contract. It is very important to understand what your contract says. Solar Alberta member representatives, so this is employees or other representatives of a Solar Alberta member business, should also not make promises or guarantees about system performance, results, or services to a consumer that exceed the promises or guarantees that are going to be in the agreements. Again, this is very important. While over-promising and under-delivering is a serious problem in all industries, it's one we're seeing fairly regularly in the solar industry. While it is easy to be excited about the prospect of solar, we also need to be realistic and not stretch the predicted benefit. Solar Alberta member contracts must also list any applicable costs that are the responsibility of the consumer. Additionally, these contracts must include material terms. So these would be the substantive terms of the contract, and these terms need to be prominently placed in the contract. You can't have hidden material terms that you tuck away in fine print. They need to be prominent. My sort of, we'll call it personal comment here, and we'll call it a plug, I guess, for lawyers, is really do consider connecting with legal counsel with respect to your contracts. There is a lot of value in it, although it is an upfront cost. It can save you a lot of pain and heartache in the future. And it's good both for the business members and for consumers to have clear, understandable contracts. So it's kind of the classic saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So there is value in making sure you have a well fleshed out contract that is legally compliant and that you actually understand.
Very much so. With the exception of a solar system that is included as part of a new home sale transaction, Solar Alberta members must provide each consumer at least 10 business days from the date of final contract execution to rescind a contract and the buyer's right to cancel as required by the direct sales cancellation and exemption regulation. It is important to note that this 10 days to rescind a contract is not only in the Code of Conduct, but is the law in Alberta under the Consumer Protection Act. Further, if a consumer cancels the contract, the seller has 15 days to refund their money.
We'd like to highlight a few points for best practices, ensuring contracts are accurate and the consumer understands what they're getting. While these items that we're going to list are not specifically outlined in the code, they're a matter of best practices, ensuring that your company maintains a good reputation in the solar industry. So first, predictions for solar PV energy yield are surprisingly accurate if you properly account for the details and adjust for them. This includes obvious issues such as snow cover and shading. It's important to remember that trees grow and future shading losses can occur. You should be communicating this with your customers. Other factors can cause losses in the long run, and these include light-induced degradation as modules age, as well as things like a change in the number of clear days. We've all seen the effect of increased smoke in recent years, and these are factors that you should also be communicating. Estimates of energy yield are needed to get permits for projects. Most customers will want to maximize the size of the PV array allowed. Ensure that your customers understand that PV size is based on historical load for a building. You should be avoiding schemes where someone wants to push this limit and get creative with energy accounting. You cannot be promising loads that are not there. For instance, electric vehicles without a bill of sale or adding a hot tub in the future. Also be upfront about future costs such as insurance, increased costs to repair your roof, and possible decommissioning or recycling fees. Finally, don't install a solar PV system on a roof that needs work or can't support the weight of the solar PV modules. On a typical residential system, that would mean 3 pounds per square foot. Ensure the roof's integrity and engage a structural engineer if necessary before adding a solar.
The Code of Conduct also contains a section on fair and honest treatment of consumers. In this presentation, we are only highlighting some of what is included in the Code of Conduct under this section, and we encourage you to become familiar with this section. Solar Alberta members need to ensure that all services provided to consumers place utmost importance on health, safety, and welfare of the public and the environment. As a member or representative of a member, when interacting with the consumer, shall conduct themselves with courtesy, honesty, integrity, objectivity, and fairness. Provide timely responses to consumer inquiries, maintain consumer confidentiality and protect consumer information, not exert undue pressure on a consumer, especially when contacting the consumer in a door-to-door situation, not make any offer or provide any promotional material to a consumer that is inconsistent with the contract being offered to or entered into with the consumer, not represent any sponsorship, approval, status, certification, qualification, affiliation, or connection that the Solar Alberta member does not have, and not make any representation or statement or give any answer or take any measure that is false or is likely to mislead a consumer. Each Solar Alberta member is responsible for ensuring that its contractors, subcontractors, and any other agents who interact with consumers on the Solar Alberta members' behalf comply with the requirement to identify themselves as acting on behalf of the Solar Alberta member. Members shall not harass, threaten, or badger customers, and members shall seek openness and transparency and not seek to take advantage of a consumer's lack of knowledge.
So now we're going to switch gears and turn our attention to the Solar Alberta complaint resolution disciplinary process. This process was originally modeled after the one that CanRIA has, and Solar Alberta has adopted something similar. So what does it do? Well, generally, this process provides an opportunity for consumers and members of the public and Solar Alberta members to respond to and work through issues and complaints. It sets forth the procedures to be followed by Solar Alberta in connection with any non-renewal, suspension, or expulsion of a business member. And it refers to the Code of Conduct to understand any alleged violations of the code.
In looking at the complaints process, it's important to review the role and the membership of the Ethics Committee, which is responsible for examining and responding to complaints about Solar Alberta business members received by the organization. The Ethics Committee consists of at least 2 Solar Alberta board members and 1 Solar Alberta staff member. Volunteers from the community may also serve in the Ethics Committee. No member of the Ethics Committee is permitted to have business interests in a Alberta solar business or any conflict of interest regarding any particular case being heard before the committee.
The process for reviewing and resolving consumer complaints and disciplining a Solar Alberta member includes the following steps. The process is first initiated when a complaint is received through the Solar Alberta website. There's a Google form contained on the website where complaints can be lodged. We cannot initiate the process if you just send us, for instance, a Facebook message. You need to go through the formal complaint process on the website. When we receive the complaint, the Ethics Committee then begins an investigation. It's important to note that the Ethics Committee does have emergency powers to suspend a member. So if something comes to the ethics committee's attention that is particularly egregious, they can suspend if the situation warrants it. Following its investigation, the ethics committee then starts its resolution process. Now, there's two different paths that can be followed depending on what the complainant desires. The first process is if direct resolution is not desired by the complainant. For instance, if the complainant is anonymous. The second process would be if direct resolution is desired by the complainant. Based on the resolution process that is followed, there will then be a hearing and ultimately a decision that's made. The Solar Alberta member who is the subject of the decision does have a right of appeal with respect to the decision that is made by the ethics committee. If you'd like to find out more information about the overall process, it's outlined in detail in the complaint resolution and disciplinary process that's available on the Solar Alberta webpage. And of course, we do encourage you to have a look at it.
And with that, we'd love to open the floor to questions and discussion. Just a reminder that we did not review the code of conduct in its entirety today, and encourage that you take some time to read and familiarize yourself with the entire document. We also encourage the same for all your staff members, particularly those interacting in the areas of customers, sales, and contracts. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. That was really comprehensive. I appreciate it. We are going to open up the floor now to question and answer. So just want to make sure that the audience is aware. You can put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom, and I'll pull from the most upvoted questions. I don't see a huge flood or of questions, so I do have a couple questions just to get us started with this discussion. I know that the ethics committee at Solar Alberta is comprised of only non-industry members. And I was wondering if you might want to elaborate a little bit on how the ethics committee fits in with the board. I know you have a very different terms of reference than some of the other committees on our board. Preet, I wonder if you might talk a little bit about how this committee operates a bit differently than the others.
Of course. So this committee actually has different authority within the board of directors as compared to other committees. It has the ability to make decisions without going through the board first, and the board, if they do not like the decision, is able to ratify the action later. This committee also, as you said, does not contain industry members, and as mentioned earlier in the presentation, if any case brought before the committee creates a conflict of interest for any of the voting members on that committee, they will be removed from communication and do not follow up with that case.
Okay. That's helpful context.
Mm.
I guess, I've got a question from Maria here, so I'll hold off on all my questions for you and go to the audience. What kind of experience or background do you look for in community volunteers for the ethics committee? Great question, because we are in the midst of our board recruitment process right now. I might start that one and then I'll pass it over to the two of you. I recently had someone who was nervous to apply because they said, well, I don't know a lot of people, and so how will I get enough votes to get, voted onto the board? And I did reassure them. I said, it's not a popularity contest for our board. There are very specific criteria for folks we're looking for, and so the current board will review the applicants, and they will prioritize and recommend to the members folks who meet the criteria that we're looking for right now. And that criteria is both, what we're looking for in terms of skills, but also representation and various demographics that we're wanting to make sure we have on our board. So I just wanted to reassure folks, it's not a popularity contest. You feel free to apply, and the board will be ranking everyone. The members still get to vote for whoever they so choose, But in my 4 years here, the members have very consistently voted along the lines of who the board recommends, because they understand that you folks know where the gaps are and are able to address that. Anything you want to add there, Preet, for Maria's question about experience and background, specifically for this committee of the board?
I think you covered most of it. We are looking for diverse individuals to join and provide that kind of perspective, and also very open feedback. I'm not too sure what else we could include for
Yeah. How
background.
about you, Scott? I mean, it's definitely the non-industry folks on this particular committee, so that they're not going to have a bias. Anything else you would look for in an ethics committee colleague?
No, I think you covered it. I think it's just understanding that the ethics committee is selected from board members that are nominated through the nomination process. So it the selection occurs, and it's board members again that do not have any sort of industry bias or conflict, and therefore can serve on the ethics committee.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. Obviously, I think the board was pretty excited to get a lawyer on the board last year, because that's always helpful to have on the ethics committee. So I had a question around door-to-door sales. When I first started, I was under the impression that there were no door-to-door sales allowed in Alberta, and then I heard that door-to-door sales were happening, and I went to Service Alberta and I said, "Are you allowing door-to-door sales?" And they said, "Yes, for solar installations they are allowed, but for energy retail they're not allowed." So we have some members who are retailers, they do energy retail, they're not allowed to do door to door, whereas the solar installers are. They're sort of treated more like any other, like a vacuum salesperson or roofing salesperson. So I thought that was a really interesting distinction. And I was just wondering if either of you, had any comments or thoughts on why that might be permitted in Alberta. What the rationale would be for banning the retail sales door to door, but not other types of sales. This is very speculative, of course, but it was curious for me, and I don't have anyone from Service Alberta to ask. So I thought, well, maybe I'll see if you two have any thoughts on why they might have differentiated that way in the Alberta law.
Scott, would you be able to take a
Yeah,
stab?
my only, I can go read the Hansards and see, but no, my only thoughts are they were likely having issues with retail sales would be my guess, and they were potentially having issues around maybe my high pressure sales tactics and things like that, and so it wouldn't surprise me if they felt there was a need there to a need that need something that needed to be addressed, and hence why they decided to limit those types of sales versus solar installs or other direct sales.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can. Unfortunately, I don't have the background, but that would be my guess.
More of a troubleshooting piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps even the solar installations, because they do often involve a more complex and substantial commitment, and like understanding time, evaluation of everything during a brief door-to-door interaction. I feel like a consumer will have more does not have time to for the opportunity to research and understand these complexities during just a brief conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that it also could be a thing about consumer education and understanding that energy sales and installation sales are different. And
I think that's a great point. It's a lot easier to move some numbers around on a spreadsheet and confuse somebody than it is to install an entire solar array on their roof. So I think that's a great point for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you for just humoring me, because I was sort of confused by that. So this question here, I'm just gonna switch up a little bit as we go. So what is something each one of you knew when you first started in the solar industry? Or sorry, what is something each one of you knew when you first started in the solar industry in terms of serving solar clients? Um, I just wanted to clarify that neither of you are directly in the solar industry, and that's part of why you're on the ethics committee, because we don't actually have industry members on the ethics committee because they'd all be in a bit of a conflict of interest, and it would be really awkward to have to try and police each other. But maybe another way of framing that question is, what is something each of you wishes all of our business members knew when they were getting started serving solar clients? So what is something you wish, if a new company was either coming to Alberta or was just getting started here, what do you wish they knew right out the gate? Of all the different points in the presentation, I guess, which one is the most important for you, or something else that's on your mind? Scott, do you want to take a first stab at that one?
Sure, I'll go to what I know best. I would say make sure again you understand your own contract. It's very easy to, and a lot of times folks will just kind of cobble together a contract and not really understand what it is that is in there. And even just very basic provisions can end up getting a business member into hot water. So really be thorough and understand what your contract says, and then represent that accurately to whatever consumers you're dealing with. It will really, really save you a lot of pain and heartache. So that would be my.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. Thanks. How about for you, Preet?
Yeah,
Um,
of
what's
course.
your wish? What's your wish?
Ac- According to this presentation, regulatory compliance. But it's definitely way more than that as well. I feel that many consumers are definitely unfamiliar with solar energy and the benefits that it provides, and business members should be prepared to educate these potential customers about the advantages of solar power, the cost savings, the environmental benefits, the ability to have some energy independence from the grid as well. And you don't need to have like a very developed technical expertise right away. It's developing and continually learning and understanding the technology itself, the system itself, the inverters, the battery storage, and continually invest in training and education for your staff, ensuring they know what's going on and they are able to follow standards and able to do high quality installations or provide services of whatever happens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And if you're new to Alberta, take full advantage of all of Solar Alberta's fantastic programs.
Yes.
Yeah, as you two were speaking, I realized our economics of grid-tied solar PV is actually perfect in that it tells you which factors play in Alberta. And as you mentioned, some financial considerations are very jurisdiction dependent, and we just happen to have a Made in Alberta course, and a Made in Alberta calculator that tells you which factors are very relevant here locally. And so, we are trying to help folks from other jurisdictions get used to our economics here. Another question in the chat or in the Q&A. If I hear a complaint from a friend about their experience with a solar company and they are unwilling to submit a complaint to Solar Alberta, am I allowed to submit a complaint on their behalf? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Particularly important, I suppose, if someone is not really comfortable on websites and whatnot. What is the role for a friend of someone who's had a bad experience? Any
Sure.
thoughts on that?
I would say that the ability to complain anonymously allows the opportunity for your friend to engage directly without having to be identified. So you'll be engaging with Solar Alberta and not with the person that you're complaining against or the business member. And the complaint submission process is open to everyone, consumers, members of the public, Solar Alberta members. So there are procedures put into place that will ensure that the business member will not know who the complainant is.
Yeah, I mean, that anonymous option is there to help folks who aren't looking for direct resolution necessarily. But I guess the challenge is sometimes you need multiple corroborating anonymous posts from different people because, depending on the situation, the ethics committee might not be able to start up a full review if there's just one anonymous complaint. But if you start to see a trend, you might get more. But it really is circumstantial and depends on the situation, isn't it? And so yeah, but it's a good point. If someone's looking for someone to redress a situation financially, they kind of have to come through the process themselves because you can't really request that someone follow through or fix up a contract if they haven't actually told you who they are. Hey,
That's right. And to mention on the form, on the complaint submission form, there is an option on there for someone to remain anonymous. And the reason that I say that it's best for the person to directly submit the complaint is because evidence is suggested to be sent in whatever form. It could be communication, email communication, text messages. It could be pictures of if there's damage. And also it asks a couple more questions to ensure the validity of the case before it goes through an initial investigation with the ethics committee.
Mm-hmm. I suppose one option too, like it depends on the barrier. If they don't want to complain because they just don't want to complain, there's not much you can do about that.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to complain because they're uncomfortable with Google Forms or websites, well, you could print out the Google form, sit
Right.
down with them, ask them questions, go through, and then help them file the form, right?
That's
As long
right.
as we have their contact information, we can follow up with them directly.
So they can provide that for sure.
Yeah, that would be another option if it's a technology barrier. So I guess it depends what the barrier is, right?
Right.
Some people just don't want to open up any more can of worms. They're just tired of dealing with things.
Yes.
All right. I have another question here. What is the current stat about the amount of solar customers in Alberta? So in the presentation, when this presentation was drafted, you're correct, it was around 16,000, but that actually changes every month. It's growing very quickly. So what we do is in our newsletter, as well as on our homepage, we actually update the number of micro generators in Alberta every month. So I recommend signing up for our newsletter or checking our homepage monthly to see what number that's at. And micro generators are homes or businesses generally with solar. But what that stat doesn't tell you is also how many solar farms are online. So those are different customers. Those are utility scale solar projects. So the way Alberta tracks these things, they track them a little bit separately. So they'll track the solar farm installations and what they're generating or their capacity. And then the Alberta will also track the micro generators, which means like homes, businesses, folks with smaller arrays. And so you'll want to be aware that sometimes you're looking at a stat for the solar farms and sometimes you're looking at a stat for the smaller arrays. So just quickly dive in there with some comments on systems. Here's a question for you. If making a complaint, do investigations still happen if they are not a member of Solar Alberta?
I can answer that, of course. We do keep a red flag list of members or non-members, and ensure that those files are saved in case that the business member wants to become a member of Solar Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
But as noted in our presentation, we are self-governing, so we only have jurisdiction over our members. We don't have jurisdiction over any other entities that are not with Solar Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think you two covered that well. You know, we keep an eye on folks if we hear about them, and when they come in, we can always consider opening a file at that time. But obviously, there is that jurisdiction issue. We're not the government of Alberta, that's for sure, even though our name might say Alberta. There is some confusion about that because our name is Solar Alberta. Sometimes people mistakenly think we are a government agency. Of course, we're not. Oh, hi, Lisa. I'm glad you're here again. Lisa says, does Solar Alberta have a list of member solar businesses that are open to helping solar customers fix up botched solar projects on their homes or solar projects that were built by solar companies that have gone out of business? So that's a good question, Lisa. I would say we don't have that specific list, but we do have our directory, and I know many of our members do that service, especially some of our longer serving members. So they're quite accustomed to kind of fixing things up for folks who come in and out of the sector really quickly. So one of the things we have on our directory is we do list how long a company has been in business. And if you're wondering if it's a company that is willing to fix up a botched array, or for a company that's gone out of business, you could look at some of our longer serving members because they are more likely to have done some of that in the past. It is a very interesting idea though, and I will talk to our member service lead, Sally, about potentially adding that as another category on our directory, because I have seen a few questions like that come up on our Facebook group, and so I appreciate you flagging that here today. I don't think we have ever given them that option on our directory before, but it's something we could absolutely consider. Obviously, we dream of that not happening, but it is true that there are companies that start up and they just can't make it work, and there's still an array sitting there needing a little bit of maintenance sometimes.
That's an
All
excellent
right.
idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Actually, on that note, I see no more questions, so I just want to wrap things up here with an open invitation. I see some great ideas coming in through the chat, ways we could further improve the code. Scott and Preet are amazing to work with, so and as is the whole committee. So if you folks have ideas for how we could further improve the code, very open to it. Please send them to office@solaralberta.ca. We'll take them up with the committee. See about further improvements. Happy to continually revise and amend the code as needed, because this is a moving industry. It's really rapidly changing, and because we have no industry members on this committee for reasons we've articulated, it does mean that we do need a lot of feedback from our industry members, because we're not necessarily out there in the community doing the solar installs. So it's harder for us to know what issues are out there. So please do share with us your suggestions or ideas for rooms for improvement down the road. And thank you again for all your chats and questions today. I want to end by thanking our wonderful presenters, Scott and Preet. It's been such a treat to have so many competent board members involved this week. I think that's a tradition we'll have to keep alive at Solar Alberta now that we've got the board fully engaged in the Solar Show week. It's been wonderful. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules. Thank you to all of our attendees. It's been great having you here, such a great engaged audience. And of course, to Horizon Energy and Enbridge for sponsoring this session. We really, really couldn't provide this free programming without you. This recording will be on our YouTube channel, and I hope all of our members will share it with all their staff, as well as their contractors going forward. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. Don't miss out at lunch. We're going to hear about the small scale generation regulation. You have till 11 to register for that session.